Love was the one verdict they couldn't argue, and the only emergency they couldn't walk away from. Dr. Nancy Carter's life ran on pulse rates and precision. Attorney Barbara Whitmore lived by objections and closing arguments. They never planned to need each other, until a scared little girl brought them together in an ER. Now, between gavels and heartbeats, they're discovering a connection that defies logic. Stolen kisses after trials, whispered promises during night shifts, and a longing that threatens to unravel their carefully built worlds. In a society that questions their love, they'll prove that some bonds are unbreakable, and some emergencies end with a walk down the aisle. Listen to this beautiful lesbian love story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt love stories. Chapter 1. Emergency Encounter. The emergency room was a symphony of controlled chaos, beeping monitors, hurried footsteps, and the low hum of worried voices. Dr. Nancy Carter moved through it effortlessly, her dark curls tied back, her sharp brown eyes scanning the room. She thrived under pressure, but tonight, exhaustion tugged at her. Then, the doors burst open. A woman rushed in, cradling a sobbing child in her arms. Blood streaked the little girl's forehead. "Please, help her," the woman gasped, her voice trembling. Nancy didn't hesitate. She took the child, her fingers already assessing the wound. "What happened?" "She fell at the playground," the woman said, her blue eyes wide with fear. I'm her aunt, Barbara Whitmore." Nancy nodded, her voice steady. "We'll take care of her, Barbara. Stay right here." As she stitched the gash, Nancy's mind flickered back to Barbara, her poised desperation, the way her hands had shaken. There was something about her, something magnetic. Later, when Emily was resting, Nancy found Barbara in the waiting area, her head in her hands. "She's okay," Nancy said softly. Barbara looked up, relief flooding her face. "Thank you." Their eyes locked. A beat passed. "You're a lawyer, right?" Nancy asked. "I've seen you in the news." Barbara smiled faintly. "Guilty as charged. And you're Dr. Carter?" "Just Nancy." "Just Barbara," she echoed. Neither moved. The air between them hummed with something unspoken. Then Barbara's phone buzzed. Work. Reality returned. "I should check on Emily," Barbara said, hesitating. "But, thank you." Nancy watched her walk away, her pulse skipping. Chapter 2. Unexpected Reunion. A week later, Nancy sat at the Brood Bean, sipping her coffee and scrolling through medical journals. The cafe was her sanctuary, quiet, warm, a place to unwind after grueling shifts. The bell above the door chimed. Nancy glanced up and froze. Barbara Whitmore stood there, dressed in a sleek navy pantsuit, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked like she belonged in a courtroom, not a cafe. Their eyes met. Barbara's lips curved into a surprised smile. "Small world," she said, approaching Nancy's table. Nancy gestured to the empty seat. "Join me." Barbara hesitated, then Saturday. "Emily's doing great, by the way. No thanks to my babysitting skills." Nancy laughed. "Kids are unpredictable. You handled it well." They talked, Barbara's high-profile cases, Nancy's residency, their shared love of jazz and terrible reality TV. "You know," Barbara said, stirring her coffee, "I never got to properly thank you for that night." Nancy smirked. "Buy me dinner, then." Barbara's eyes sparkled. "Is that a date, Dr. Carter?" Nancy's heart fluttered. "Only if you want it to be." Barbara leaned in slightly. "I do." Chapter 3. First Date Jitters. Their first official date was at La Luna, an intimate Italian restaurant with dim lighting and soft violin music. Nancy had spent an hour agonizing over her outfit, finally settling on a deep green dress that hugged her curves. When Barbara arrived in a fitted red dress, Nancy nearly forgot how to breathe. "You're staring," Barbara teased. Nancy blushed. "You're stunning." Barbara reached across the table, her fingers brushing Nancy's. "So are you." The night was perfect, until Barbara's ex, Claire, walked in. Claire's eyes narrowed when she saw them. "Moved on fast, huh?" Barbara stiffened. "Not now, Claire." Nancy squeezed her hand. Ignore her. But the moment was tainted. Later, under the stars, Barbara sighed. I'm sorry about that. Nancy turned to her. You have nothing to apologize for. Then, slowly, Barbara leaned in, and their lips met in a kiss that sent sparks through Nancy's entire body. Chapter 4: Love and Complications. The months passed in a blur of stolen moments and aching absences. Barbara's high-profile case defending a wrongfully accused client had her working late nights, while Nancy's emergency rotation meant she was often called in at the last minute. They existed in a delicate dance of missed calls and hastily scribbled notes left on kitchen counters. Gone to the hospital. Don't wait up. Love you. Working late again. Left dinner in the fridge. XO. One particularly grueling week, they hadn't seen each other awake for 5 days straight. Barbara would slip into bed just as Nancy was leaving for her shift, and Nancy would return to find Barbara already gone for court. Then came the night Barbara lost her case. Nancy found her sitting on their balcony, still in her courtroom suit, a half-empty glass of whiskey in her hand. The defeated slump of her shoulders told Nancy everything. Without a word, Nancy sat beside her, taking Barbara's hand. Barbara's fingers trembled against hers. I fought so hard, Barbara whispered, voice raw. It wasn't enough. Nancy pulled her close, feeling the dampness of tears against her shoulder. You did everything you could. But what if? No. Nancy cupped Barbara's face, forcing her to meet her eyes. You are brilliant and fierce and so damn good at what you do. One loss doesn't change that. Barbara's breath hitched. I don't know how to do this, balance us and the work and... We'll figure it out, Nancy promised. Together. That night, they made love slowly, desperately, as if trying to memorize every inch of each other. Afterward, Barbara traced Nancy's collarbone with her fingertips. Maybe. Barbara hesitated. Maybe I take fewer corporate cases. Focus on the pro bono work I actually care about. Nancy kissed her temple. Whatever makes you happy. Barbara smiled, soft and real for the first time in days. You make me happy. Chapter 5: The Proposal. Nancy planned the proposal for months. She knew Barbara would see through any elaborate ruse, so she kept it simple. Their favorite beach, the sunset, just the two of them. But even the simplest plans could unravel. The day arrived, and of course, Barbara got held up in court. Nancy paced the shore, the velvet box burning a hole in her pocket, watching the sun sink lower. Then, footsteps in the sand. Barbara appeared, breathless, her blazer slung over her shoulder, heels in hand. I'm so sorry, she panted. The judge. Nancy kissed her silent. You're here now. They walked along the water's edge, Barbara's hand warm in hers. As the sky turned gold and pink, Nancy stopped, her pulse roaring in her ears. Barbara. Barbara turned, and froze when she saw Nancy on one knee. Nancy's hands shook as she opened the box. You once asked me if love was enough. And the truth is, it's not just enough. It's everything. Marry me. Barbara's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled over as she nodded, her voice breaking. Yes. God, yes. Nancy slid the ring onto her finger, then stood to kiss her, deep and sweet and full of promise. Barbara laughed against her lips, giddy, twining her arms around Nancy's neck. I love you, Barbara whispered. Nancy pressed their foreheads together. Forever. Chapter 6: Wedding Bells. Their wedding day dawned bright and clear. Nancy stood at the altar in a tailored white tux, her hands clammy. Emily, now their official flower girl and Barbara's proudest niece, grinned at her from the front row. Then the music swelled, and Barbara appeared. Nancy's breath caught. Barbara was radiant in a lace gown that skimmed her curves, her hair loose and sunlit. She carried wildflowers, her eyes locked on Nancy's. As Barbara reached her, Nancy whispered, You're breathtaking. Barbara's smile was blinding. So are you. They exchanged vows under an arch of roses, their voices steady despite the tears. I promise to love you through every late night and early morning, Nancy said, thumb brushing Barbara's knuckles. Through every lost case and every hard shift. To always come home to you. Barbara's voice wavered. I promise to choose you, every day, even when it's hard. To build a life with you that's full of laughter and love. When they kissed, their friends erupted in cheers. Later, under the stars, they danced barefoot in the grass, Barbara's head resting on Nancy's shoulder. Mrs. Carter Whitmore, Barbara murmured, testing the name. Nancy grinned. Sounds perfect. Chapter 7. Happily Ever After. 5 years later, their home was a symphony of chaos and love. Emily, now 12, sprawled on the couch doing homework while Barbara proofread a brief nearby. Nancy's stethoscope hung by the door, next to Barbara's favorite heels. Some things never changed. Barbara still worked too late, Nancy still forgot to eat during shifts. But now, there were rituals. Sunday morning pancakes. Coffee shared in bed. Barbara's feet tucked under Nancy's thighs while they watched bad movies. One evening, Nancy came home to find Barbara asleep at her desk, papers strewn around her. Smiling, Nancy brushed a kiss to her temple. Barbara stirred, blinking up at her. Hi. Hi, Nancy murmured. Bed. Barbara nodded, letting Nancy lead her upstairs. As they curled together under the covers, Barbara sighed, content. Remember when we thought we couldn't make this work? Nancy laughed softly. Turns out love's pretty stubborn. Barbara kissed her, slow and sweet. Good thing, too. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead. Inside, their hearts beat in tandem. 2 lives, perfectly entwined. Heartfelt ending. Nancy stood at the window of their sunlit kitchen, watching Barbara pace the garden in her worn-out Harvard Law sweatshirt, phone pressed to her ear as she passionately argued yet another case. 15 years had passed since that frantic night in the ER, yet the sight still made Nancy's heart skip. Emily, no longer a little girl with a scraped knee but a pre-law student at Columbia, bounded down the stairs, stealing a piece of toast from Nancy's plate. Aunt Barb's in full courtroom mode out there, she laughed, kissing Nancy's cheek. Nancy smiled, touching the simple gold band on her finger. Some things never change. That evening, as they walked hand in hand through their neighborhood, the same route they'd taken every Sunday for a decade, Barbara suddenly stopped beneath their favorite oak tree. Remember our first fight? Barbara asked, thumb tracing Nancy's knuckles. When I said love wasn't enough. Nancy snorted. You were an idiot. Barbara pulled her close, their foreheads touching. Turns out, she whispered, love was just the beginning. As their lips met, the years flashed between them. Hospital vigils, courtroom victories, quiet mornings, and loud fights, the terrifying joy of building a life together. And in that moment, any listener would understand. This wasn't just a love story. This was a choice, renewed every single day.